Hello everyone, xforts here, and welcome back to Chainsaw Man Wednesdays, where today we have episode 6 of the anime and chapter 111 of the manga to review and discuss. Very interesting things happening with both pieces of content that we got today. Episode 6 is continuing with the Eternity Devil arc, which it turned out to be paced a lot differently than I thought it was going to be, and this episode specifically was probably the most unique looking episode from the entire adaptation so far, as it seems like they really wanted to make it have like a horror movie aesthetic, a lot of like cinematic lenses that they use where there's a lot of wide angle lenses and very interesting things to make this seem like an anime movie, and really locking in all the techniques and the visual style that makes it feel really creepy and eerie within this endless 8th floor. And as well as in chapter 111, where we had, Yuko showing up at Asa's apartment, this chapter ends off with a major character death as well as a major twist of a new devil or new villain introduced that is very interesting, and we'll discuss it all when that time comes. So starting off talking about the new episode like we always do, I had just mentioned how it was the most unique episode visually, at least in my opinion, as well as the tone they were going for. You just have very eerie vibes and the techniques they're using with the camera to make, give a big lead up to everyone sort of losing their minds and Kobeni eventually trying to stab Denji and making the characters really feel like there's a lot of tension in the air and they're uncomfortable here, and it's just expressed so well throughout the entire episode. I had mentioned how there's a lot of like film techniques used. A lot of anime don't really consider that like what you're watching, in real life would be through a lens. And Chainsaw Man is fully aware of that, especially, being adaptation of a Tatsuki Fujimoto manga who loves movies. So like in this, you'll see like Kubrick zooms and wide angle lenses, either inverted or reversed, and it's used for different things as well. Because we're in this hotel and the hotels are such a cramped area, they're taking that camera into like mind and making a wide angle lens so we can see more of what's happening within these cramped spaces that also, distort people and distort facial features. And that's just a technique they used a lot in this episode, and it's used in a lot of horror movies as well to make things look distorted and bendy and creepy, and I think it fit really well with the hotel shots as well, being a really cramped and small area. Other than that, the soundtrack was on point. We heard some new tracks in this episode, really eerie, really cool stuff going on with the soundtrack as well, and that mixed with all the visual elements made for a really creepy episode that really worked in building all that tension and making like there seem like an enemy that's lurking around the corners, because we don't really see a lot of the Eternity Devil in this fight. We're more so fighting against the hotel itself, and that's expressed really well when you have these really creepy elements where Aki walks into one of the rooms and he's like, my window, there's another room on the other side of the window and things aren't leading where they should be, and it really makes you feel like the enemy is the area that we're in and not so much a devil. Of course the devil shows up later, but that's about the majority of the episode of what we're fighting against. As well as pacing wise, there is a lot of dialogue. It is a dialogue heavy and a slower episode. Like I mentioned, I think they really dragged this out to sort of build that tension and make it feel like the characters are here for a long time, so then they would eventually be losing their minds. To add on to that, everyone is super animated and super expressive in this episode, and I don't mean that as in like they're animated well. I mean that as in they're moving a lot, and there's a lot of subtlety to their movements, especially Kobeni, who is the star of this episode. This was Kobeni's episode where she had all of her moments, because this is the episode where people are really gonna fall in love with Kobeni and the anxiety of her character and just how chaotic she is and how out of place she is with these devil hunters. I think that's always been the appeal of Kobeni. It's like she's a fish out of water almost. She doesn't act like the other devil hunters, and it's always been a question of like, why are you even here, Kobeni? Like, you're really scared, you're not very strong, you never reveal your devil powers. At least the way I've always interpreted her is that she's just a character that doesn't really belong here, but she's here anyways, and that's funny. And she has a Rai that is sort of like taking care of her and making sure she's okay, but it's not really working well. And in terms of when I was saying everyone's really animated, like, look at the shots of Kobeni where she's like literally shaking. All the characters are shaking, and then the characters are sweating a lot, and they're having a lot of wrinkles on their face and everything close up. So visually, this episode was really striking and really unique, and it's a good thing and a bad thing sort of. So with the anime, the only complaint I really have about it is that it's not really capturing the chaotic pacing of Chainsaw Man, which is something I specifically really love about the manga, and I think it's one of its strongest elements. And the anime seems to be sacrificing those for the more cinematic tone and have a better looking anime, I guess, that's very visually impressive. We saw this earlier when they removed the muscle devil fight. And it's that the manga isn't really afraid to flip on it, what is it? Turn on a dime, flip on a dime, whatever that expression is, to change quickly. So the manga, you'll have Denji fighting someone, then talking, and then a slow scene, and it's chaotic. It's Chainsaw Man pacing. And we saw that in episode 2 when they cut the muscle devil scene, because we had that instance of action like mixed in between this more somber moment with Makima and Denji. And from the anime's perspective, they're like, no, this wasn't really important. This might, break the tone of the episode, so they cut it entirely. And when I saw that, last episode, we get to the hotel about halfway through, I almost thought certain, I would have bet money on it, that this episode would have concluded the Eternity Devil arc and then led into next episode being the slower moment where we're recovering. We have that scene with Denji and Himeno, because there is quite a bit of talking after this episode as well. And then the episode, I would assume episode 7 would have ended on the cliffhanger with Makima's assassination. But I don't think that at all anymore, because this episode, we only begin the fight with the Eternity Devil at the very end. And it's like, holy shit. I was checking the episode as it was going. I was like, we're 18 minutes in now, and Denji is still not transformed or fighting the Eternity Devil. Like, either it's going to happen really quick or it's not going to happen at all. And no, so the next episode, and the way that the anime's been going is that they really take their time to give more to these fights. And so I think the Eternity Devil is probably going to be the first 10, 12, maybe even 15 minutes of the next episode. In the manga, it's maybe like 9 pages. It's pretty quick. Denji just kind of jumps down there. He realizes he can't take damage, so he realizes that the Eternity Devil isn't really taking damage from him. That's how it goes. So Denji's like, okay, I'll just sit here and I'll drink your blood and I'll fight you for a week until you just can't take the pain anymore and you want to die. And that's what happens. I think it's about a week or 2 weeks that they're actually in the hotel where everyone's waiting for Denji to finish the fight. And then the Eternity Devil is like, I can't take this anymore. Here's my heart. Just kill me. So that happens really quick in the manga, but the anime, considering how much they love to add to these Denji fight scenes, it's going to be a while. They're definitely going to extend that for sure. And we might even get like this, 1 or 2 minute montage of those 2 weeks happening and new techniques that we didn't see in the manga of like Denji just going all out on this guy, with this brilliant idea of winning the Nobel Prize, where he's going to be able to, he turns himself into like a self-sufficient engine where he's able to take damage, but he's also drinking the blood of all the damage he's causing. So as well as the ending theme was Rendezvous by Canaria. I pronounced that wrong, but Canaria. Yeah, the song was cool. Kind of sounded like a Minecraft YouTuber intro a little bit. No, I'm kidding, but not really my cup of tea. I thought the visuals were really nice. We saw some of the poses from the manga where how Denji is going to be fighting the Eternity Devil, so that is all good. So that's going to wrap up our anime discussion, which now leads us into chapter 111, which is the most interesting chapter we've had in honestly a few weeks, which is kind of crazy to say considering we had the confrontation with Denji and Asa in like just whatever it was, the last chapter. But yeah, shit goes down in chapter 111, so to speak. So it is titled Aha Ha Ha. No, I'm kidding. I don't think that's what it's supposed to be referencing. It's just like characters laughing, which will be relevant as we continue on in the chapter, where Yuko and Asa have a nice laugh, which also has some undertones to it, which we'll get into. So the chapter starts off obviously where we left off with Asa and Yuko coming to Asa's apartment late at night, and she's revealed in this mysterious state where she's like half devil, half human. We talked about it a lot last week. Is this Yuko's new permanent state? Was this caused by the Horseman, the exchange she made with Asa, part of her contract? Is she just healing? Is she going to go back to normal? And while Yuko doesn't outright say what she's become, through her dialogue it kind of narrows it down, and she does clarify quite a bit. So she explains that the Justice Devil is still out there, which is going to be a larger discussion we'll have in a little bit, but the Justice Devil is still out there. So she didn't become the Justice Devil, or it's not still inside her, but she is turning into a devil as she's losing her humanity in a way, and she is unable to control these devil characteristics that she has, where she wants to kill and eat people. And even in a few chapters, she unintentionally grabs Asa by the throat and is like, oh, I can't even control myself. So she is turning into a devil, but she is still a human, devil man. And the reason for her transformation is still kind of unclear. I guess this is just, at this point, I'll just say it's part of the contract with the Justice Devil, or just something unique that happened specifically her, considering the context of what happened, where she had this huge big transformation, Denji came and killed her, maybe not all the way, so now Yuko is left in this recovering devil type body, but she's not the Justice Devil, she just has Justice Devil like powers still, and the real Justice Devil is still out there. So a very unique situation Yuko is in, and before we get any answers to anything more that she'll become, no, she ain't gonna be around for much longer. Let's just put it that way. So also during this interaction between Asa and Yuko, when she's explained to her that the reason why she came here is because she just wants to say goodbye. Asa was really nice to her, and she also wants to repent in a way, sort of confess these sins that she has done in a way that sort of maybe clears her conscience, but also gives Asa a little bit of peace and just make amends also. But during this, she mentions that she has this is just like off dialogue that I took notes of that I thought was interesting. Yuko mentions that her distant relative is a devil hunter, and there could possibly be a way to make her human again. Again, I'll just address the elephant in the room. Yuko's fucking dead. Yuko dies in this chapter indefinitely, for sure. So Yuko mentions that her distant relative is also a devil hunter, and just because she mentioned that, and I'm considering other devil hunters in Tokyo, I wonder if it's a character we've met before, or a character we've seen. Or maybe it was fucking Kusakabe, because everyone talked about, I literally did not even think about that until I was reading this out loud. But yeah, in part 1, Kusakabe looked, the guy who controlled the Stone Devil who died during the Darkness Devil fight. A lot of people had thought that Yuko was Kusakabe in disguise or something like that, but maybe Kusakabe is still alive, perhaps? No, he's not still alive, or maybe Yuko doesn't know he died, and this is who she's referring to. But yeah, she mentioned she has a relative who's a devil hunter. Maybe it's someone related to Kusakabe, or it was Kusakabe, because they did look really similar. So that was just a little bit of small talk in the beginning of the chapter, but then Yuko really gets into what she actually wanted to say. And she repents to Asa as she explains that, I'm a bad person. I was never really good. Everything I always did was for selfish reasons. And I'd still think in the beginning, Yuko was a good person. She wasn't entirely bad. And even making friends with Asa, even if it was for ulterior motives or for her own selfish gain, she still did a good thing, which we'll see later on. So Yuka's telling her that the reasons why she made friends with Asa was for selfish reasons, and the reason why she contracted the Justice Devil was that, not to, it might have been to protect Asa at one point, but eventually it turned in because I wanted to be a hero. I wanted to be just like Chainsaw Man. And eventually being contracted with the Justice Devil, she said that all she could hear was the voices of other people, and sort of alludes to that she lost her sense of self. She couldn't hear her own conscience, and this sort of caused her to slip and get too focused on specific things and not really have that inner monologue that she has of being like, hey, Yuko, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Are you sure you're doing this for the right reasons? And maybe that was because of her head was filled with other voices, or all the thoughts of everyone else. That's just sort of a little thing that she mentions. And this could have possibly also driven her to madness. So that's sort of some conclusion to Yuko's character for us, the readers, before her eventual death, to be like, let me know what you guys think about this as well, because I don't really have like a definitive side on this either. Like, was Yuko a good person that got corrupted by the Justice Devil and eventually, even coming to Asa's apartment here and saying goodbye? This sort of puts her more on like the lawful side of the spectrum, even though she did do terrible things like killed people and wanted to become like Chainsaw Man for selfish reasons. Asa is a pretty complicated character. Of course, in the end, she is pretty much a villain, pretty much a bad. I would say she's probably the first minor villain of Chainsaw Man Part 2, but done in a really interesting way. And I can't wait to see this animated eventually, because recontextualizing this after she has this big confession, this brings us all the way back to How to Walk Shoeless. And when we're first introduced to Yuko, it's like, this is the beginning of a villain arc, of the Yuko arc, I guess you could say. So pretty cool that Yuko ended up being that first minor villain throughout pretty much the part, I'd say. More so than, I wouldn't consider the Bat Devil or the Cockroach Devil. Yuko's definitely that first character. And I mean, this might even be a glimpse of how arcs are going to be different in Chainsaw Man Part 2. In Part 1, it was really just like, go fight this devil, go kill this devil, and devils didn't really have much of a conscience or much humanity to them. You had the Bat Devil, the Eternity Devil, Katana Man a little bit, but they were like criminals. So you had all these really bad enemies. But now these conflicts are a little bit more personal to Asa, where it's her friends and people she cares about, people she goes to school with, people that might not be as black and white as before, like the Bat Devil, where you have Asa, who was a good person corrupted by a devil. So I think this is all just speaking to the different tone Fujimoto is going for in Part 2, and the way it's more character and emotionally driven, and just a completely different vibe from Chainsaw Man Part 1. And I think Yuko really hit the nail on the head, being that first villain that we fought, and sort of I could be a good start for what the fights are going to be like in the future going forward in this part. So let me know what you guys think about Yuko's character now that she's sort of concluded here. Just mentioned, I thought she was brilliant. I thought she was done really well and had that more gray sides of an enemy and wasn't so black and white as a lot of the devils we fought before, and was really good development for Asa as well, which we see just now, as when Yuko tries to go away, Asa is like, take my shoes, I see that you're barefoot, which brings us all the way back to How to Walk Shoeless, and shows that Yuko did do good things. Even if she thought she was a horrible person, she might have been to some extent, but even if Yuko did make friends with Asa for selfish reasons, it shows she still made a positive impact on Asa's life and taught Asa to grow in a way. Because if you remember, going back to chapter 1, Asa hated people. She was very introspective. She was very self-loathing, and she didn't care about anyone but herself, and she thought everyone was stupid, and she was sort of the funny thinking, like, I'm the main character, I don't care about anyone else, even though she is the main character. But that was sort of Asa was that. Asa didn't know how to care for other people, and now that we see that even that Yuko is a devil and just attacked her and is saying goodbye and killed people, Asa has this sympathy within her heart for this character that was there for her when she was in a bad place and offers her shoes, and recites pretty much the whole thing, the whole monologue that Yuko gave in How to Walk Shoeless, where it's like, you can sell them, you can throw them away, I don't care, you're taking the shoes, they're for you, I don't want you to walk barefoot. And I thought that was a really important moment for Asa, and shows that she is growing as a person, and Yuko was able to make a positive impact on her, and that Asa is learning to care about people and is making friends even if they're gonna die immediately. But yeah, this just brings me all the way back to this whole arc pretty much with Yuko and Asa was done really well, and this is like a good callback and a good conclusion to it and a good wrap up, and clearly Fujimoto was planning it from the beginning. So overall, Yuko Asa relationship arc, how it played out and how it's coming full circle, is a freaking 10 out of 10 in writing. I think it's really clever. So when Asa is preaching the past words of Yuko, saying, no, you can throw them away, you can steal them, Yuko has a cute line where it's like, wow, was I really that cringe? Did I really say something that stupid? And they sort of share a laugh over this moment they're having, which in the larger context, it's a pretty messed up moment here where Yuko is now turned into a devil. She's wanted. She can't go back to her family. That's out of the question. And she's really here to say goodbye to Asa. And now that, Asa was like, here, take the shoes. I at least want to take care of you a little bit. They just have a little bit of laugh here. And this brings us into Asa's inner monologue, where it's something, this moment, I think this is one of like the most significant panels in this entire chapter, because it's a moment that is so unlike anything that would have happened in part 1. So when we're brought into Asa's internal thoughts, we see that she feels bad for laughing. And this brings us all the way back to Asa in the first chapter, where she is very introspective and she lives more in her head than in the real world. And she's constantly thinking about herself and all the bad things she's done and what she should be doing in a situation instead of living in the real world. And she's sort of regressing in a way here, but it's some interesting reflection she's having, where she's being self-loathing and calling herself the worst and thinking about all of the people who have just died by her hands and Yuko's in the wake of all this chaos. Thinking back to her teacher and even the class president from the first chapter, as well as the students that Yuko had killed. So I think this is an important glimpse into Asa's character, as well as the new tone Fujimoto is going for in part 2. Very character and emotionally driven, developing Asa's character through the things that she's done in the past and giving her moments to reflect on these actions that she's done that have very real consequences, and it might even influence how she grows and how she makes future decisions, which is just something you don't have in Chainsaw Man Part 1, where Denji or any of the Devil Hunters were like, I feel bad for those people I killed during the Bat Devil arc, or what does that mean for me as a person? Who am I if I'm able to live while doing these terrible things? And not even a thought, because Chainsaw Man was more of just like a shonen action. It had, of course, a lot more mature and a lot more clever undertones to it, but at its core, it's almost like a dark comedy. And with part 2, it has a lot of those elements, but it's really just more introspective with Asa and her character specifically, being a smaller cast as well. There's nowhere near about the same characters as there was in 13 chapters of Chainsaw Man. We were already introduced to like the whole devil hunting bureau. So now like we're just really focusing on Asa's character and this introspective nature to her. And I think it's really cool that Fujimoto had referenced things that happened in chapter 1, where even the readers have probably long forgot about it. It's like, yeah, and it wasn't even Asa that did that. It was Yoru that killed Tanaka and the teacher and the class president. So it's interesting that Asa is still self-reflecting on those moments and being like, I am a fucking terrible person. How am I able to laugh right now with Yuko when our school was just attacked, and in the past I killed my class president and my teacher? And I think that makes Asa a super interesting character and will definitely impact her development moving forward and how she decides to handle situations, because she's clearly not like Denji. She won't forget the past and she won't just move on from things so quick, because she does have a bit more humanity, I guess you could say. So with Asa's internal monologue, that sort of concludes the whole first scene of this chapter with Asa and Yuko at the apartment. And then we get a transition scene where Yuko leaves the apartment and tells Asa they'll meet again one day. Psych, bitch, no you won't. And then we see Asa moving around the city with her new devil body, sort of jumping from rooftop to rooftop. And then we get this panel that shows sort of, besides Hitofume, the main cast of Chainsaw Man right now and the main important characters and what they're doing right now. So we have this panel where we see Freckles. We don't have a name for her. I don't want to call her Horseman or anything, so we'll just call her Freckles from now. We have Freckles, Asa, Denji, and Yuko. So sort of the 4 main players right here. And very interesting that we have Freckles. But before I get more into this panel, I do want to talk about her character a little bit. So another thing that Yuko had mentioned when she was at Asa's apartment is that the Justice Devil is still out there and goes to their school. So we don't know if the Justice Devil is a student or if it's just a devil that inhabits the school. It kind of would make more sense if it's just a devil lurking out there, because we know it infected the class president, and Yuko probably found the devil at school, and that's how she got her contract. So interesting to know that the Justice Devil is sort of this lurking evil in the school and might have contracts out with even more people. And this brings us to the Freckles character, where everyone had thought, and at least I myself kind of still think, that she's one of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse because of her eyes. But what if the eyes are just reserved to more so just just powerful devils, maybe? I don't know. So it would this makes me think a little bit more that maybe that character is the Justice Devil, or at least the Justice Devil's newest victim. That's just a current possibility, considering that Yuko had mentioned the Justice Devil is still out there and we're bringing focus to it, and as well as that this character is still very relevant in the story as well. So could still be a Horseman or the Justice Devil. Thinking back to a few chapters ago, the last chapter, it kind of makes sense for her to be the Justice Devil, because where we had that moment where this character was able to bring Yuko back to life, it would make the most sense that the Justice Devil would be able to give someone that already has a contract with the Justice Devil more power. So that makes sense in a way. So a bit up in the air with Freckles. Don't really know what's going on with her, what sort of devil is inhabiting her, or if she is a devil herself. But we know that she is an important character because she's on this panel right here. Then we see Asa being very self-loathing, probably just reflecting on the conversation she just had with Yuko and how she's thinking about all the terrible things that she's done in the past weeks or few days. And now we see Denji sleeping peacefully out like a rock, and we see Makima's dogs as well as a little black quarter circle in the bottom of the panel, and that is of course Nayuta. So very cool. Thank you, Fujimoto. Nayuta is here. Nayuta has arrived. We don't see her face, but I like that Fujimoto is probably aware that the readers right now are like, what the hell is going on with Nayuta? Where is she? Why has Denji not changed? Why is Denji not acting like a parental figure? What is going on here? So this is Fujimoto, I guess, just showing the readers that, yeah, I didn't forget about Nayuta. Denji's still taking care of her. She's still in the story, but I guess he's not ready to explore that character yet or reintroduce her. So all cool with that, but I think it's awesome that Fujimoto finally gave us an answer and spoke on it a little bit, being like, yeah, there's Nayuta. Maybe it's Hitafume. Maybe Denji's in bed having sex with Yoshida. Maybe that's what it is. But yeah, probably Nayuta. Of course, her hair is the same, and that's about really similar to the panel we saw in part 1 with him and the dogs in bed. And then this brings us to the final character, which is Yuko. Looks like she's sleeping. Psych, in the next panel, she is brutally beheaded and dead with blood running out of her mouth and her nose, and yeah, her head's off. And she's speaking the words Chainsaw Man while looking up. And this brings us to the final page of the chapter, where we have a character holding Yuko's ankle, holding her body upside down with her decapitated head, and in the shadow on the wall, we see someone who looks like Chainsaw Man. So a lot just happened, a lot to unpack in the final 2 pages of this chapter here, where we have this mysterious element of this evil Chainsaw Man type character. So let's Sherlock Holmes this, let's sort of break it down here. So is this Denji? Is Denji the person that killed Yuko? Is this Denji in his Chainsaw Man form? Most likely 99% no, because we had just saw in the previous panel where I assume we're seeing all of these things happening in real time. Freckles is sleeping, Asa is sleeping, Denji is sleeping, Yuko is dead. So it would make sense that this is all happening simultaneously where everyone's at in their life right now. So it could not be Denji because he's in bed. Another reason why it couldn't be Denji is that this character is extremely freaking tall. This character is like 8 feet tall. So they're holding Yuko by the ankle upside down. And if it didn't have the shadow, it would appear that this character is holding them above their head, like the angle of the arm. It's like they're holding the body. But then when we see the reflection, the head is a whole foot over the arm. So this character is at least 7 feet tall, holding this character up. And we know that Denji is not that tall. This character is an absolute beast. So what is this? Is this Pochita moonlighting, escaping Denji's body and going around the streets in his chainsaw form? Although the size is about the same. This does look like about pure devil Pochita. Obviously, that makes no freaking sense. Why Pochita would do that? Why would he kill Yuko? Why would he leave Denji's body? Can he even do that? Probably not. So what is going on here? Why is there another Chainsaw Man going out about the streets and enacting vigilantism, it looks like? Because of what Yuko had just did, it would seem that she is wanted and she is a devil on the loose. So by killing Yuko in the situation at night here, it would look like this devil is participating in vigilantism, which is what we know that Chainsaw Man does. The more plausible thing is that what we're seeing here, this devil in this shadow, is not Pochita, but it is actually the devil birthed from Chainsaw Man. So this is the Chainsaw Man devil. Not birthed out of the fear of chainsaws, but specifically the hybrid devil, Chainsaw Man, which I think is a really freaking interesting concept and a really interesting idea to show that, all the creative ways that devils can be feared. And this would make a lot of sense and also connect to how the story is building up to this point. Is it possible for there to be a devil that is the Chainsaw Man devil that sort of mimics Denji in a way? So in the last chapter, I had mentioned in the last chapter review that there's this really insignificant panel that focuses on this character fearing Denji. I don't really know why that is, but yeah, that sort of comes into relevance here, where Freckles was extremely scared of Denji, where she was like, no, don't kill me, Chainsaw Man, don't hurt me, please don't, which shows that there is a certain level of people that do fear Chainsaw Man, and we know that that's how devils are born, from the fear. No matter how big or small the devil can exist, even if it's just a small fear, it just won't be that strong. And also, besides what just happened in the last chapter with Freckles fearing Chainsaw Man, what have we been being reinforced in almost every single chapter so far, especially in the beginning of the part, is the social divide between people agreeing and disagreeing with Denji and his vigilantism, showing that there's a large portion of the population that does not approve of Chainsaw Man and this hero of humanity and a devil being a vigilante. We see that they protest him in the streets, large groups saying, we don't want Denji, get him out of here. This isn't right. Devils shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't have a devil fighting devil, or like this devil that's a hero for us. So it is plausible that all those people as well fear Denji, and especially the things that have been happening lately with the cockroach devil and the bat devil interaction, where the cockroach devil had given Denji the choice of being like, hey, save some people, or who are you gonna save, this car of young kids or this car of old people, I think it was. And Denji didn't save either of them. He saved the cat behind it. So you could only imagine what all the people in that area would think, that like, wow, Denji, this Chainsaw Man, is okay with people dying and doesn't really value humans' life, and he's crashing into buildings, making destruction. So it's completely more than likely that there's a large amount of people that fear Chainsaw Man, which obviously makes sense for there to be a Chainsaw Man devil, which I don't think anyone expected that to ever come up in the story, but here we are. And I think the fact that no one really considered that to be a possibility to sort of speak on the level of cleverness from Fujimoto. There's a saying with a good twist in writing, whether it's a movie or a book, it's that a good twist has to be the last thing you'd expect, but in retrospect, the most plausible solution, if that makes sense. So when you get to the twist of like a Shyamalan movie, or any twist really, it has to be something that you never would have expected, but when you recontextualize things, it makes the most sense. It was right in front of you just couldn't see it. And like that really makes sense why Fujimoto has been like I bring it up in almost every chapter review. It's like, why is Fujimoto bringing so much conflict between the people in Chainsaw Man? Is he setting up for some sort of divide between the people, or a war against human and devils? And I think we kind of here see what Fujimoto was working with here, and that he was showing us that there's a divide. A lot of people don't like Chainsaw Man, and this probably birthed this new Chainsaw Man devil. I'm kind of putting all my eggs in one basket here, betting on that's what this is. And to make this even a larger fear, it could be the Chainsaw Man devil, but also a devil out of the fear of people's vigilantism. Because what we had just saw in the last chapter is Yuko wanting to be like Chainsaw Man, getting a contract with a devil, and going and having her own, sort of vigilante spree where she thinks she's doing the right thing, and sort of the fear of copycats of Chainsaw Man as well. So the fear of Denji, as well as the fear of copycats and vigilantism in general on the streets, could be culminating into this one giant fear here, which takes the form of a Chainsaw Man copycat, which looks sort of like, maybe probably doesn't look like Denji because people don't know what Denji looks like, but at least looks like Chainsaw Man. And from what we saw in this chapter, the last specific design thing with I'm just going to call him the Chainsaw Man devil for now, because that's really the only sort of conclusion I can make at this point. The only design difference is that he's a lot taller. He or she, could be a girl as well. This character is a lot taller, as well as on the back of the chainsaw, it is covered by Yuko's leg, but we should still be able to see the handle here. But it looks like there's no back to the chainsaw thing, and at least it's like, I'm kind of reaching here, I'll admit that, but what could that symbolize if we are taking that as a fact that it has no handle? And I think that is because Pochita has the handle because he's always being controlled by someone, or he's always working in tandem with someone else. So when Denji and Pochita were separate, we saw that Denji would hold Pochita by his handle, and as well as then when they formed with them, now that there's two people inside, he still has the handle. So maybe because this is a pure devil that has no ambition of making a contract or doing anything, or doesn't really need anyone else to control him or work together with him, he wouldn't have a handle because he doesn't want anyone grabbing onto him and using his chainsaw. It's his chainsaw for him and him alone. So maybe that's the symbolism for him not having a handle, or Yuko's leg is just covering it and he does have a handle. So for now, going on the theory that this is a new devil, new powerful devil that mimics Denji's powers and is birthed from his actions, where do we go from here? Very interesting. I do like the idea of Fujimoto introducing a larger threat that could possibly be an opportunity for Denji and Asa and Yoru to all work together to try to defeat. If this is the Chainsaw Man devil, I would assume it's pretty powerful and its abilities are equal to that of Denji. So this would be like a rival and an equal opponent for Denji. So that might be another opportunity for him to sort of get the help of Asa and Yoru to work together. Also, something that I think this has much larger implications, again, going based off the theory that this is what my prediction is true, is that this new devil could be a potential catalyst for major character development from Denji. As after he defeats this devil, where does he go from here? Does he continue to be Chainsaw Man, or does he drop this idea of a hero for humanity so a devil like this can never be born again? Because if this is the Chainsaw Man devil and Denji kills it, he can't just continue to be Chainsaw Man and a vigilante. He would need to change in a very substantial way so people don't fear him anymore, and so this devil would never be born again. So this brings up the question is that after this character is defeated, what will Denji do and how will he change? Will he become a regular devil hunter, or will he work in secrecy, or will he just retire indefinitely? But if this character was birthed out of Denji's actions and his irresponsibility and his naiveness and his immaturity, this devil would be an opportunity for Denji to forcibly need to change as a character if he doesn't want this thing to exist anymore. So I think that's also an interesting plot point that Fujimoto might be proposing with this character. Again, sort of all assuming that this thing is birthed from Denji's actions, or I kind of feel like that's the only way it could go here. Maybe I'm missing something obvious or another theory you guys have. Of course, let me know. This is just a shocking revelation here where there's another Denji or another Chainsaw Man-like character, and that's what I'm going with. That's the X-Forts theory here, that this is the Chainsaw Man devil. I think that's just too cool, and it would be a really good opponent for Denji and maybe even Asa as well. So let me know what you guys think about this, and yeah, this was a really good chapter, especially good for our weekly discussions, and just a lot to talk about here, and that's sort of my thoughts on it and where I think it's going. Really cool. Could be an opportunity for Denji and Asa to work together, and also could be a catalyst for Denji to have huge character growth and maybe even have to retire from being Chainsaw Man if someone like this is birthed from his actions. So very cool. Fujimoto, 11 out of 10, wrapping up the Yuko character arc, killing off this character in a way that introduces a new mystery and a new villain. Just absolutely beautiful. Loving this shit every week. Really good job. Really good job. Chainsaw Man continuing to just be absolutely peak fiction. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll talk to you guys next week for more Chainsaw Man. All right, thank you all so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.